Hello everyone, this is Roland. Welcome. Today I want to talk about life. One of the most important lessons that we can learn is what's important and what's not important. When you were a kid, or when you were a teenager, you had a very good sense of what's important and what's not important. And it seemed to you, especially when you were a teenager, that your parents were making unimportant things too important and missing the important. They would get all angry about some little thing, like you spilled milk on the floor, or you left a sock laying on your floor somewhere in your room, or forgot to do your homework, or something like that. Not really that important in the long term, is it? Your parents seem to remember what was important when things went wrong. Something went wrong. Something went really wrong with someone's health, for example. Then suddenly they remembered what's important. But when something unimportant went wrong, something unimportant, like an extra bill to pay, or a car repair, or something like that. A lot of times they got really upset. Something somebody said, some little thing that you accidentally said at the dinner table. You were happy and laughing, and you said something and everybody got real angry. Maybe you got slapped or put down, accused of something. See? You couldn't believe it. You couldn't believe it that they were accusing you of something and you didn't even do anything. And do you remember that some of you will remember that your parents or parent, when they became upset over some trivial thing, angry over some trivial thing, it was like it wasn't even your parent anymore. It was like a monster. Like like the famous Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, two different personalities. Your mother could be oh so sweet and so charming and so much fun to be with. You liked her because she could be fun to be with. But if she got angry or into a mood, she became like a monster. How many of you have experienced something like that? A lot of you have. Well, you know what? That is trauma. That is trauma. Now, how is it that someone can become like a completely different person? Like a devil, a demon, a monster, an animal, raging. Or how many of you had an alcoholic parent? Okay. Or or addicted to some kind of prescription meds or something, but we'll just say alcoholic. When they drank, they became like a different person. Okay, you dreaded. So with your parents or your guardians, you dreaded that certain day of the week. I remember at my house, Saturday morning, it was like being in hell. My mother would rush around saying that the house was a pigsty and a mess, and then soon there would start to be obscenities, and then there was blaming, and then I was called every name under the book. See, I was just a little kid, 7 or 8 years old. And sometimes violence. There was sometimes violence. And she became like a monster. So my question to you is, how is it that people become like someone else? Complete personality change. Or they do something out of character. You can have a decent father, decent mother, and then all of a sudden you find out that they have a secret life. He was messing around with some lady at work, or she was messing around with some guy. A secret life. Okay? Or all of a sudden one day your father announced that he's leaving, he met somebody else. How could he do that? How could he forget everything good and go off? Or your mom, maybe the same thing. See? Or how have you ever known someone taking drugs? They become like a changed person when they're looking for their drug, when they have to have their drug. They become like a changed person. They have a one-track mind. All they can think of is their drug. They forget everything else. Well, I don't have to list any more examples because you've seen it. Most of you have seen it with someone. A change comes over someone. Sometimes it's a one-time thing. A change comes over them. It's like they're a different person. Sometimes they recover. They go off for 6 months with someone else, for example, or they go on this drug or drinking binge, and then they come back and they recover. They could recover from that other person. See? You see with kids too, all of a sudden you parents, your teenager comes home one day changed. Now it's no longer your loving son or daughter anymore. Now they're caught up with some neighborhood good for nothing, with whom they do weird things or take drugs. Now you're like the enemy, and all they can think of is that friend who has an influence over them. So you have to be very careful. I've written about that in some of my books and how to deal with it. You have to be very careful. You have to remain calm, but you have to be firm. You have to separate them from that bad influence, and you have to remain calm and don't overreact. Don't become resentful or angry. But on the other hand, you have to be firm about it. Anyway, so how is this possible? Well, I'm going to give you a couple of clues. There's a lot of different reasons, but one of them is hypnosis. Okay? Watch someone on the stage being hypnotized. There's some good YouTube videos, incidentally. The best ones are the stage ones. Not all the stage ones on YouTube. Some of them are very silly and degrading, but there's some that are of, like in a corporate setting, that are done with taste. And watch the hypnotist, bring them up, and then he hypnotizes them. And he's something like, he'll hypnotize them that their hand is stuck on top of their head. He'll put their hand on their head. And then he'll tell them to just, they won't be able to get their hand off their head. Well, you know what? They get stuck in that image in their mind, stuck in that picture in their mind, stuck in that imagination. Okay? And when they're stuck in that, they can't get their hand off. See? They're stuck in it. Or another thing is they can hypnotize someone to do something. He says, well, when you open your eyes, you'll be fully awake and feeling good, but you'll have you'll want to drink. You're thirsty and you want to drink something. And then when he snaps his fingers, they open their eyes. You see them start to look for water. They say, I gotta have water. See, they have a one-track mind. So the point I'm getting at is that the person gets stuck in one thing under the influence of someone else who directs them to getting stuck in that image in the mind, that imaginative image, that visualization. See, stuck in a visualization. Well, people so what happens then? Well, here's another thing. I'll give you another example. If you're sitting in a movie theater, there's a good way to sit in a movie theater and watch a movie, and a bad way. The bad way is the way most people watch a movie. They get so into the movie, they get into the characters in the movie and what's happening, they're totally lost in the movie. They forget themselves. They forget themselves. They forget all about everything in their life, everything important. All they have right there is that movie in their mind, and they're identified with the character in the movie, and for a little while they're not themselves. See? What's called escapism. So now you see why there's escapism, like during wars, Remember World War II or hard times? People are looking for escapism. They want to escape into a movie or some entertainment. They want to get into it, deeply into it, so they can forget their life and their troubles, but they also forget who they are. They lose who, then they're not even themselves for that time period. They're so much into the movie. So if a person can get into a movie, the right way to watch a movie is to sit back and watch the movie, but maintaining a little sense of reality. Okay, watch the movie, but don't get too deeply into it. So you're still aware of yourself sitting in a chair and that you're in the movie theater. And there's the movie. See how you can watch a movie without getting too deeply into it? Well, all right. So now you see how people they get into something, into an image in their mind, into a movie, into a scene, into some idea, into an emotion. They get into an emotion, so much into the emotion that they forget themselves. They forget. They may not forget themselves when they're in the emotion, like let's say anger or excitement. Well, you've seen people at ball games, they get so excited, ranting and raving and screaming. Sometimes they do dumb things. They say bad things or do dumb things. They're so much into the emotion. See? So you see how people forget. They forget about God, about good, about the family, about safety, about love, about patience, about kindness, about what's important in life. All of those they forget while they're into the emotion or into the movie. Okay? But now, do you see how when you get into the movie gets into you? Do you see that? When you get into the alcohol gets into you. When you get into the anger gets into you. The scene gets into you. That's why when you get emotional or excited or scared or upset or any kind of emotion, it imprints the scene in your mind. Later you can relive the scene almost as if you're almost reliving the scene because it's so vivid in your mind. And incidentally, do you know how like when in a fugue, like a post-traumatic fugue, the person relives what happened, the trauma, and it's like he's reliving it. It's like it's real for him. See? He's overwhelmed by that scene, and he's into the scene. And while he's into the scene, he forgets everything else, including reality. See? So the basic idea you need to see is when you get into something, you get into the emotion, into the movie, into the excitement, into the thought, whatever it is, something gets into you. See, it's shades of the Garden of Eden. See? Adam got into the idea of being great through knowledge. See, probably he imagined in his mind how great it would be, and something got into him. The spirit of pride got into him. See? And then he was misled. So now do you see that when you get into something, something else gets into you? Well, the other thing that gets into you is the spiritual reality behind the temptation. See, all these distractions, they're temptations. They're pulling you away from what's important, what's true, what's good, what's honorable, what's loving, what's patient, what's kind, what's noble. See? They pull you away from that. They pull you away from family, love of family. They pull you into some temptation. They appeal to your ego and you go for it. See? And you get into it, into your drug, into your emotion, into your excitement, into your romance, into your adultery, into your selfish pursuit, into your video game, into whatever. They're all distractions. But while you're getting into that, something behind the temptation gets into you. Even as a hypnotist, gets you to fixate in your mind on a picture. See, focus, fixate on that picture. And while you're fixated on that picture in your mind, see, and then maybe even he gets you distracted and trying something or whatever he gets you into, or gets you into a feeling. Oh, you're so relaxed, you feel good, you feel loose and limp and relaxed, and all the tension is leaving, and now you're getting into the feeling because you want to feel relaxed. Oh, it's wonderful. But while he's doing that, he's continuing with his patter, his talk, And then he can make suggestions of things that you will do. And they get into you. So now can you see how temptation, someone can tempt you with an appeal to the ego and emotions and feelings and images, and then that gets into you. The spirit of trauma gets into you. The trauma gets into you. You get into the trauma gets into you. You get into the temptation gets into you. You get into the distraction gets into you. But something else gets into you. The spiritual reality behind the temptation. See, life is basically, there's two, there's heaven and there's hell. It's like the cartoon, you know, we have Daffy Duck or Elmer Fudd, and on one shoulder is an angel and on the other shoulder is a devil. Well, that's pretty much the way it is. There's a war going on between good and evil. And people are pawns, see? Or people are a willing servant of God or a slave of the devil. See? Most people are a slave of the devil because he appeals to their ego and distracts them from what's important. And they get into their temptation, and then he gets into them and acts through them. So the spirit of trauma. So Saturday mornings when my mother was ranting and raving and screaming and shouting obscenities and becoming violent and throwing things around and accusing me, who was doing that? The spirit of trauma. The spirit of her mother, my mother's mother, was in her doing that. See? The spirit of trauma gets inside. So now you see what trauma is and how the spirit of trauma gets in. Now you see what distractions are. See why you mustn't get. Now you see why in my last video I said you should learn to live life on an even keel. Not getting overly excited about things, not getting overly emotional about things or overly unhappy about things. More of an even steady, okay, less emotional. And you have to snap out of your daydreams. See, snap out. If you find yourself getting into the movie too much, then take a mental step back. Notice yourself sitting in the seat. Notice the people around you eating popcorn. See, now you're back in reality again. If you're sitting there and all of a sudden you're lost in a vivid thought, vivid imagination about what happened or what you want to do, snap out. See? And the way you snap out is you observe the thought. Instead of being in the thought, you stand back and observe the thought. See? Well, there's much more I could say about it. But for the time being, I think that's enough. So now you see why the meditation is so important. It gets you started. My meditation. Now you see why do you see how a lot of meditations used visualization? Okay? Maybe the people who are well-meaning, they think, well, if people have negative thoughts, and if they have nice, beautiful thoughts of a beautiful stream or a beautiful lake, and there they are sitting next to the lake and see some kind of a wonderful image, or if they have negative thoughts and maybe have a positive thought, well, see, to counter it. Well, I understand that. But the point is, the truly positive is the light from God. See, in his light, you can stand back and observe the image and see it's only an image. See? And you can observe the lie and see it for what it is. Okay? The temptation, you see it for what it is. So you don't go for it. You're not into it. And you see how, and now you'll see how emotions pull you in. So you'll see all of that when you use my meditation, because I don't use images. See? Don't use visualization. It's a simple process of standing back. It is so simple and so good. It's hard for me to describe to you how good it is. You have to try it. It could help do you a world of good. Because once you start learning a little meditation, practice it 5 minutes in the morning and 5 minutes at noon, 5 minutes in the evening, then you can carry that with you. And then when you go out in the world, when something starts to pull you in, then you can just take a mental step back and observe it, and then not get pulled in. Not lose yourself. Not forget yourself. Not forget what's important. See? Be yourself and not be acted through. Okay? All right? So it's like, remember I said when you're in a movie theater and you're into the movie, you're so deeply into the movie, well, identifying with the characters and so on. Well, if you're deeply, deeply into the movie, you see how someone could come along and take your purse or pick your pocket. See? Because you're not there. You're not aware. You're not there and you're not aware. If you're standing back or sitting back and you're aware of yourself in the chair and there's people around you and they're enjoying eating candy and popcorn and there's the movie and you watch the movie lightly, so you can enjoy it lightly but without getting too deeply into it. Now you have a protection. You are aware. See? You're not into the movie. You don't forget yourself. So it's the same thing with thoughts. You just observe them. So some of you are troubled by very negative thoughts, unwholesome thoughts, scary thoughts. Okay, we stand back and observe them as if they were a bad movie. See, now you're sitting in your chair, the movie theater. There's the thought, but now instead of getting into it and going along with it and fighting it or giving into it or worrying about it, you just observe it, and you see it's just a bad movie. It's not credible. Negative thoughts, they're just not credible. See? Well, okay, I've said a lot. So the meditation is free. I have a free version. A couple of them, actually. The prayer meditation is free, and the easy meditation is free. They're very simple. You can learn them in 6 minutes, and could do you a world of good. My name is Roland.